This interview was recorded back in September before all of the current events have taken place. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you again so much for joining us for From the Suggestion Box, Navigating Feedback, the Good, the Bad, and the Say What? I am so thrilled to have this special, wonderful woman, Miss Faiza Venzant, and she is here, and she has just been an inspiration to me, and I'm just so thrilled to have her here. So please, everybody, please welcome her. And Faiza, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
The way my bio starts, it's important to me. So my parents are immigrants from Uganda. They came here to Canada, where I am, in Toronto, Canada, in 1972. They were expelled from the country at that time. Whole another podcast episode. But anyways, they actually made a really easy life transition here in Canada because of so many volunteers, and because they were immediately asked to volunteer and take part in their new community. And so, that's where my volunteer story starts. And for the last 20 years, I've been a leader of volunteers, working in various organizations and leading teams, leading groups of volunteers, and really trying to move the needle on what is the definition of volunteering, who gets access to volunteering, and how do we change it so that everybody has a right to participate in building the community that they want to live in. So that's me. Yeah.
But wait, there's more. There's something that you didn't mention. What about this?
Oh, yes. I'm a mama of two little boys. And if you're a mom, if you are, you don't even need to be a mom. You could be anyone that has a kid in your life. There is something about little babies that, oh my God, they are irresistible, delicious. And so when I was on maternity leave with my kids, with my first kid, I wrote this book, and with my second kid, I decided to self-publish it. So it's called My Mama Wants to Eat Me Up. So yeah, one of my roles in life is mom, the one that's the hardest and the one that I'm most proud of. And that book is one of the fruits of that experience. So thanks for mentioning that, Nicole.
Of course. Well, and I have the book, and like I had told you, I was trying to read it to my daughter, but it didn't go over so well because she's like 23 and she just gave me side eye, and I was like, but I always want to eat you up, and she was just like, no, mom. And I was like, well, okay, I tried. Exactly. Well, and it's amazing that you are a mom, because for me, I believe for me personally, being a mom has definitely prepared me to manage volunteers. Not saying that volunteers are children, because that's not what I'm trying to say, but the whole having to learn to organize and be accountable to somebody who is relying on you, that is something that I learned from being a mom.
Being a mom, like this is a profession full of women. I mean, let's call it what it is. It's a profession full of women. And I think the reason that we're well suited to this role is that for those of us who do have children, or whatever our family situation is, being a parent is also, you get to practice your cheerleading skills, your motivational skills. You're really invested in bringing out the best in someone. And I think that, being a mom has also sharpened some of the skills that I need to have as a leader of volunteers, because part of this role, and one of the most important parts of this role, is helping people to be the best version of themselves and to contribute to their communities. And raising kids is like that as well, looking at them and looking at what they're great at and building off of that versus what they're not so great at. Thinking about how to motivate them, how to pump them up, like how to make them feel valued. All of these things are important as well when you are partnering with volunteers. So I'm really grateful. I didn't become a mom until 4 years ago, and I've been doing this work for 20 years. But I think that having worked with volunteers has informed, motherhood for me, but also being a mom has changed the way I relate to volunteers as well.
Fabulous. Absolutely. I am right in the same boat. Okay. So let's dive in.
Do it.
Feedback. So tell us about some feedback that you received in your 20 years of doing all of this, either something that was really great that helped you to move forward, or something that was true, it hurt just a little bit, but it was necessary for you to grow. So just tell us something. Give us something.
Okay. So something that I heard, and it wasn't actually directed at me, it was somebody sharing something that had made a difference for them. And in sharing that made a huge difference for me.
Okay.
So someone was going through a really difficult time, and the script that kept going through her head was, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And she was talking to a friend of hers, and the person said to her, like, instead of saying, why is this happening to me? Think about, why is this happening for me? And just that change of that one word, why is this happening for me? Like, to me, when I heard that, I just had this moment where, like, all of a sudden it was like I was seeing pictures in my mind and things were shifting into place and everything was making sense to me in terms of difficult things I had gone through. And after I heard that, it shifted the way that I approach so many things, right? Instead of thinking like, why is this happening to me? Why is it happening for me? Like, it has really shifted the way I give feedback. It's shifted the way I receive feedback, because I think that there's always this opportunity for a lesson. And so let me tell you a poor piece of feedback that I received,
Okay.
which at the time I didn't realize was poor. And I want to give this example because I think it's important for people who have the privilege of giving feedback to understand how much weight their words carry. So I was in a role and working on a team, and somebody said, you're never going to make it to management because you're too positive and you're too cheerful.
What?
Yeah.
What?
You're too positive and you're too cheerful. And I like those things about myself. I like to be a positive person, and I like to be a cheerful person. I internalized that feedback to the point that every time I was sitting across this person, I was miserable. I wasn't able to find like any joy in the work that I was doing. I thought that something was wrong with me. And I thought that I had to be the opposite of that, which I internalized as serious and like having no joy in the work whatsoever. And my work suffered as a result. How I showed up for that team suffered as a result. And I started doing some work on gratitude. I started a blog years ago. It was called It's Gonna Be a Lovely Day. And it was my gratitude journal online. And I had to unlearn what that person had, what had let that person do to the way I thought about myself. I had to unlearn that. And now I just think to myself, that feedback that they gave me was more a reflection of how they felt about themselves than it was how they felt about me, right? There was something about me that set them off, that made them uncomfortable. And I've received feedback like that before. So I worked in an organization where someone who was in a position much higher than me, often say like, the way you say things, it gets my back up. The way you say things gets my back up. And so I would try to work on my delivery. I would memorize things before I would speak to her. And what I realized is that she's not used to anybody questioning anything, having questions at all. And I ask a lot of questions before I do my work because I want to do it well.
Yes.
And the reason you have your backup is because you're not used to anyone asking questions. And I tested it. So I asked a colleague of mine to be with me in a meeting. We had a list of questions between the two of us. And when my colleague, we'll get into this later, a white woman was speaking to this person who was a white woman, when she spoke to her, her questions were met in a very different way than when my questions were asked. And so, that was kind of like my first understanding into it was the first time where the discomfort that I feel, I don't know if you feel this way, Nicole, but often in spaces when you're the only person of color, there's this discomfort that you carry, right?
Yes.
You're always uncomfortable.
Yes.
And there's a Nicole that exists when she's laid back with her friends, and you can speak, you can slip into your slang, you can do whatever. You don't have to show up at work, right? Yeah. So that was a huge realization for me. And so it was a big learning, because what I learned was that feedback is not the end, it's not the be all and the end all. There is something to learn as to like, what am I going to learn from this? So, what I learned from that person was, she was never going to change anything that I ever said to her unless I was like, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. She wasn't going to respond to me in any other way. And I moved on from that role. I moved on from that role. I could see that where the ceiling was there. I could see that there was nobody else in the organization, except for one other person that was a person of color. Definitely nobody on the board, definitely nobody on the leadership team, and I moved on. And I took my talents elsewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good to know when you need to do that. Yeah. Like Kenny Rogers, you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them. I think I got that all mixed up, but y'all know what I'm talking about.
But see how these like quotes stick into your mind, right? And so like that's one for you, is that you know when to leave.
Yep.
And for me, I always am looking for the lesson. And like one thing that sticks out for me now, which I kind of laugh at, and it's like, it's the ego talking, but that person who said I was never going to be in management, like, I want to somehow like slip it into conversation one day, like, oh, by the way, I'm the executive director for the Council for Certification in Volunteer Administration.
So not only are you in management, but you are doling out the certificate. Like, come on. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And I deserve the role. I've earned the role. I deserve to be there. And I own that. Yeah. I'm so privileged to be in the role, but I also own that I'm the right person for the role. So yeah.
Well, yeah, and I know we didn't talk a lot about this in your intro, but you have won awards. You're a member of many different associations. You have put the work in and deserve to be exactly where you are, and I am so proud of you for that. And it is very inspiring. Like you know, we have this conversation a lot. It's so important to see yourself in whatever that you're doing. You know, it's one of the reasons why the Black Panther movie was so overwhelmingly phenomenal, because it was a movie that really celebrated being a person of color, where there's not too many of them that are out there like that. So just even with everything that you've done in the position that where you are, like, I know that you've had to work hard to get there, and I have so much respect for that, and I'm just so excited and proud, and it makes me feel like, man, well, if she can do it, then so can I.
Absolutely. So. 100% you can. Yeah. I would love to have a conversation with you in like 20 years to talk to you about, like, because for my kids, we're going off topic here, you can edit this part out, but for my kids, they're growing up in a time of Black Panther. Like, they don't know anything different, right? So all they know is that they are seeing themselves on the screen. Their mom wrote a book and put their faces in that book. So
and they
all they're seeing is possibility, right?
Yeah.
They see a working mom, they see a working dad. And so I would love to talk to you in like 20 years to just talk about, for your daughter growing up 20 years ago, how did that influence her? And then for my kids growing up now in 20 years, what will that be like, right? And
yeah, because the world is changing constantly, moment by moment, in a lot of ways for the better. There's turmoil, but usually that's what happens when something great is about to happen, you know? So it's, yes, we'll put it on the date. 20 years from today, we're having it may not be Zoom call. It might be like,
hologram.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know, I think his name is Bishop T.D. Jakes. Do you know that guy?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I got introduced to him through Oprah because I went to this Oprah event, interestingly enough, months before I met my now phenomenal husband. He was talking about, he had this example of just exactly what you're saying. He was like, right before a baby comes, you go through that pregnancy and you go through that birth. And I think he was saying, like, right before the most beautiful things, when you have the most excruciating pain and suffering, and then it ends and you have this like beautiful baby. And he was saying that exact same metaphor, right? That like right before this like dawn of change and movement, oftentimes something really horrific and horrible has to happen. And
yeah, and they call it labor for a
yes,
reason.
labor.
And I tell my child that every time. I'm like, I know I love you and all, but I'll never forget the day that you were ripped from my loins. Like, it might have been 23 years ago, but I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, it was so worth the pain and the struggle and the everything that had to happen for this beautiful, for the beautiful result of what it was.
I love that. I love that.
It just, yes, absolutely.
I think that being a mom is the most selfish thing I've ever done in my life. Like, to bring a Black child into this world, especially into this world,
Yeah.
2 boys, I often think to myself, like, Faiza, that is the most selfish thing that you ever did. But to be honest with you, it is the best thing that I ever did. The best thing that I ever did.
Yeah. Oh, I'm loving it. Okay. Faiza, that is amazing. And I am right there with you. Okay, so my next question is this. You are a trailblazer. Regardless if you want to accept the title or not, you are trailblazing for people like myself, and just, laying this new path. So did you have a mentor that was giving you great feedback to help you along the way to get you to where you were going?
I didn't have a mentor.
Wow.
I didn't have a mentor, and I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me doing things that I'm now doing. I still don't. In a lot of the places where I work and volunteer, I still don't. I gotta say, like, mentorship is not something. It's not something that. It's not something I ever was approached with. It's not something I ever sought out. So that's maybe on me as well. But yeah, I never really had anybody say, like, recognize talents in me, take me under their wing. I never had that. And I think that I did see a lot of my colleagues go through that. I've been on teams where I've seen a manager gravitate to one person more than another person. I think that there's a lot of affinity bias at play in those situations. I have an experience that I can share with you about being on a board and being the only person of color on that board. And it was a very early leadership experience for me. I remember other people on the board were all kind of groomed for executive positions, but I was never approached.
Wow.
But I was given awards for the work that I was doing on the board. I was given accolades, but I was never approached to take on a progressive position in that organization. So I think that, Nicole, one of the reasons that I wanted to support you in this as well is because I want to make sure that I have been doing this work for 20 years. I don't know everything, like, not at all. I have so much more to learn.
Yeah.
But I do know that when I see somebody in a community similar to me, I want to make sure that I reach out. I want to make sure that I amplify that person. And let me take a moment right now to show you how I'm keeping track. Look at my book.
Yeah.
If I ever republish this book, my only feedback would be, like, I have this little crazy clip here.
Yeah.
So that I can keep my page. But anyways. I just wanted to promote this amazing journal that you made, for people with the most beautiful of intentions. But it's so important to me to amplify voices that are not going to be amplified in other ways. Not just voices, but also opinions and experiences. And so, when you reached out to me to be a part of this, I was like, 100%, absolutely, whatever I can do to support Nicole, because I see what you're doing. I also see the content that you put out there, and I see the comments that you're not getting, because there are people that cannot relate to some of the things that you're talking about. And in our field specifically, it isn't that racially diverse.
Right.
So I see you put out content sometimes, and I'm like, yeah, people are they're not hearing what she's saying. So I try to comment when I can, but it's really important for me that the space that I didn't feel was there, or maybe I didn't seek, I want to make sure that it's there for other people. So I want to have conversations about, making our profession more inclusive, diversifying opinions, diversifying experiences. Who we are should reflect who our volunteers are serving. And it doesn't, right? The fact that we're mostly women, I mean, there are men and boys out there that need services and who are volunteering, and that's not reflected in what we do.
Right.
So, long story short, I didn't have a mentor. Yeah, I didn't. And that's fine. That's my journey. But I would hope to change that for some other people.
So then, let me ask you this. How did you find the strength to keep pushing forward? Because all I'm hearing is resilience, bouncing back. How did you find the strength? What was it that helped you to continue to keep moving forward and pressing forward?
I think, when there's a conversation that's not being had, I think one of the things I do is I create a space to have that conversation. So, I don't even know when it was, we did a panel on resiliency and volunteer engagement. And that was a conversation that I wasn't seeing happen in our field since the onset of the pandemic. I was hearing a lot of why conversations. And I wasn't interested in those. I was interested in conversations about where is your resilience coming from. I wanted some positive messages because I'm a positive and neutral person.
Yes.
I wasn't hearing it. So I was like, I'm going to put together this panel and I'm going to make this conversation happen.
Nice.
That's something that I'm so comfortable doing. Like, if there is a conversation that's difficult, I'm up for it. I'm up for having it. And I think it's just because I can't blame anybody else for my learning except for me. I'm an adult. I'm in charge of my learning. And so I got to create those opportunities for myself. If they're not out there, I'll bring people together and have them. And the feedback that I get is that these are other conversations that people want to have as well. So, when I've taken on initiatives like that, at our resiliency panel, we had over 200 people attend, right? So
wow.
I know this is something that resonates with other people.
Yes.
Yeah, I just think if I could give anybody a piece of feedback is own who you are, own your strengths, and own what you're good at, and then take that forward. You don't need anyone to validate that for you. And that's how my book came to be. I actually sat down one day and on my bed, I had envelopes and printouts, and I sent my manuscript out to 40 publishers. The next morning, I put them in the mail. On the way back from the post office, I called my husband and I was like, I don't need someone to tell me this is a great book. It's a great book. We're going to do it.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. Sorry, I got excited. Sorry. Yes, I'm sorry.
I don't know if you hear this, but I hear people saying I don't have a seat at the table and I don't get the recognition I deserve. Don't wait for somebody else. Let me turn my phone off. It is beeping like crazy.
Because you're important. Y'all, we got her. She's important and we got her. I'm so excited. Hey.
It's my mom sending me pictures. She's yeah, it's not like that. Anyways, own your strengths, own your experience, own your knowledge, and don't wait for somebody else to validate it for you. You don't need that. And if you are going to lead a life where you're waiting for other people to validate you, it's going to be really painful. It's going to be really painful. And you're constantly going to not feel good enough. So that has to come from you. Yeah.
And that is literally exactly why I created this.
Good.
Because I was I don't know, I must have been either left out of another meeting or I don't know, maybe I had asked for a promotion and didn't get it. I don't ever remember what it was, but there was a day where I was just I am good enough. I am this, I am that. And it just got to the point where I just started writing everything down. Yeah. And I was I'm going to remind myself of who I am. And it's all the things that I had this envisioned, like if it was like a red carpet and I was walking down the hallway at my organization and I had paparazzi, you know, up and down. And as I was, you know, strutting down, someone would be yelling at me like, you are seen, you are heard, you are awesome, you are intentional, you are thoughtful, all of the, and, you know, and I started writing them down, and then I put them in the journal, and I was like, I'm going to use these to encourage myself on those days when I feel like people don't understand my worth. I'm going to encourage myself. And then I gave one to my assistant, and then she posted it, and then Tracy in Australia was like, oh my gosh, I need these. And then I got the one from you, and I was like, oh my gosh, okay, yes, and clearly I'm not the only one who needed it.
Yeah, it's resonating with people. And the thing is it doesn't have to resonate with everybody, right? I wrote a kid's book. It's for kids like 0 to 3. It doesn't have to resonate with your 20-year-old daughter. But it does resonate for some people. And
exactly.
And you know what? The thing is that you could have an idea that resonates with nobody, and that's still fine. It's still fine. Other people don't have to take it on.
Exactly.
Or monetize it, or, you know, you have to get rich from every great thing that you do. You know, but you have to own what you're good at, and stop waiting for other people to tell you that. And I think that's why, like, this topic of feedback, there's so much good that can come out of feedback. There is so much damage that can come out of feedback. And, you know, what I would say is, like, when you're getting feedback, you know, try not to center yourself sometimes, or try to center yourself sometimes. Like, you got to receive it in different ways in a way to make it make sense for you.
Right.
Sometimes it's just another person's bad day, and it's another person's way that they feel about themselves is, you know, projected onto you. Sometimes when you have a really good manager who gives you good and or bad feedback, it's stuff that can take you to the next level. And so you got to listen, and you got to hear what's important at those times as well.
Absolutely.
You know, and I would say too, like, I think a good manager knows that, you know, if Nicole is on my team, Nicole needs to be motivated and spoken to in this way. That's the way she hears things. There's an amazing book about this called The Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace.
I have it.
Yeah, like, if you know the languages of love.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a book. I gotta tell you a story. So, the 5 languages of love. I love this book. Yeah, my husband and I.
Oh, that means he loves you like a boyfriend. That's awesome.
He's cute as when he was my boyfriend. But anyways, now we're old and married. When we first started dating, we were dating long distance. And so we had this, like, book club that we did. And the 5 languages of love was one of those. And I learned so much about centering how like egotistical I am, and how I center myself way too much.
Yeah.
And, you know, that is like something as a manager, like, your role is not to, like, tell people what to do. Your role as a leader is to help people to become leaders, and to help them, you know, to help them feel supported, have the resources that they need, and get to where they want to go next.
Yes.
I think, like, if I'm successful in getting someone onto the next job or the next team or onto the next project, then I'm successful.
Awesome.
As a manager, yeah.
I love that. And I love what you're saying about own who you are, because I would say maybe in the last 2 or 3 years, I have come into myself. There is many things that I would always hide. And many people only got one aspect of me, because there are so many things about me that once you find out about them, people have visceral reactions. Number one is that I was a professional cheerleader. People either love cheerleaders because they're beautiful, they want to be like them, or they hate them because they think they're dumb and attention seeking, and got picked on when they were in high school. And so I would never mention it, but it is 1,000% who I am. I am a natural born encourager and cheerleader. I walk with pom-poms.
Yeah.
It's kind of, sometimes you never know when you need to cheer somebody up, and people love poms. Like, there's something about rallying. Like, I have a pair right there, I could pull them out, but so it was part of myself that I used to hide, that I didn't want to tell people. But now I'm like, I used to be a professional cheerleader. I'm a semi-professional cheerleader now. And then I'm owning, like, I am Latina, yo soy Latina, and I love it. I am a Black Hispanic, and I come from immigrant parents, and this is who I am. But it's taken me a while to get there, but I am now at the point, like, this is who I am. You can either take it or leave it. But I know that when I come into your life, I am going to sow into you the best that I have and give you the best that I have. And that is all I can promise and leave you with. And if that's not enough for you, then cool. But I know that when I lay my head down at night, I have given you my best, and I can sleep peacefully knowing that I've done that.
Join us next week for part 2 of this episode.